Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Progressive Performance Podcast. This is my first time hosting. I'm Paige Thorla, Coach Paige, and I have a very special guest, and I'm so excited that she is my first guest ever because this is Maggie, my love. And I'm going to introduce you, and then you can introduce yourself.
Okay.
So, hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. So Maggie was one of my clients. When was that? 2022?
Yeah. No, I think it was October or October.
Okay. So she hired me with the intention of doing a show again. However, was very open to just getting healthy again first. And any client that comes to me like that is like chef's kiss, like moldable, coachable, just down for anything. And that is so important in a client. So I want to say that right off the bat. And so we did a lot. We started with a reverse. She came to me saying she gained a bunch of weight after the last time she competed. So wanted to make sure that we maintained a really good relationship with food. We sort of had to almost relearn how to lift because of back injuries. So we took that really slowly. We hung out at maintenance for a long time and even started seeing changes in your physique right away, which is so cool. And then long story short, we entered a prep and it was a long, slow one and got her nationally qualified again and then reversed her. And that was the span of like almost 2 years.
Yeah. We worked on the basics of, like you were talking about, food and lifting for over a year before we started to prep. Over a year.
And what's so cool is you say basics because that's so true. We have done we've done everything together, and that's why I like love you as a person, but as a client, because we have totally done basics. But then the next crazy thing is that we've also done a lot of advanced stuff together. So we've talked about the mental health side of things, which is what this podcast is. And we also, with your IBS background, took you through a low FODMAP diet and sort of did it together, right? You know, as a dietitian, it was something new that I learned. Not every dietitian understands low FODMAP and how to take someone through that and do the reintroductions and stuff. And I had just learned it, and you were my guinea pig, and it was fun for me, not for you.
Well,
for me,
it was an experience, that's for sure.
No, it was stressful. I was like living it with you, I feel like.
Yeah.
But it's cool that we went through that together, and then got married. So we did all of the parties and bridal showers and wedding, and then graduated you. And that's a cool thing too. I mean, you really went the full spectrum. Like you even spent the time to get to a place where we were eating intuitively for a while. And then I was like, oh, you don't need me anymore. And to really from start to finish, for you to come in and say, like, I'm at your mercy, and then really go like with no end date. Because a lot of people say, well, I need to leave in 3 weeks. Like and that's fine if it's financial or whatever, but it's nice when someone's just like, I'm going to do this until I feel good about not doing it anymore. And that was you. And it was so great. And here we are.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It was a good 2 years, and I can't believe we were together for that long.
I know. It's amazing. I know. So I've like known you forever, it feels like.
Yeah. No, really. It was so much learned stuff, I feel like, that I can now take on my own and work through on my own. Because to be honest, when we first started, I don't even think I knew how to I don't think I understood how to eat intuitively.
Sure. And a lot of people don't, even if they probably think that they do. Mm-hmm. But that's another topic. So I would like to go into the next exciting part of this podcast. And that is that this podcast is coming out after we have already announced you as the newest member of our P2 team. So excited. So excited. So obviously everyone on social media has seen that announcement, and this podcast is going to serve to make sure that people know you a little bit better. So I introduced you from a coach-client perspective. I would like you to introduce yourself from a professional perspective.
Sure. Yeah, so again, my name is Maggie. I am a licensed clinical social worker, LSCSW, and I've been a licensed mental health professional for over 10 years now. I started in social work in child and adolescent psychotherapy. That was like just the clinical route that I decided to go to when I was working through clinic in grad school, right? So the great thing about social work is that there are so many different avenues that you can work in as a social worker. So I've worked in school social work in the juvenile system. I've started working in an inpatient setting for kids. I've done private practice. I've worked in a hospital setting. I worked in the ER at the height of COVID. And now I work in managed care where I'm essentially educating providers on how to document based off of like NCQA and state standards. So a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm. And that's so great. That's really cool. And again, as coming from a coach perspective, you were very open to learning, even though you had that background. And I think that I really see most of my clients as my peers because you guys are, I very rarely coach someone who doesn't feel like I could just go get coffee with them, regardless of age, truly. And so what's cool is that when I say we kind of went through mental health stuff together, I helped you, and I appreciate that you were receptive to that, even though you're the professional. But also you had such amazing feedback yourself that one thing I always say about you is that you really were sort of coaching yourself in that you were being vulnerable, telling me what I needed to know as your coach. And then in the same paragraph, you were like, but here's where I landed and here's how I got there. And here's what I'm thinking. What do you think? And it was truly like the thought process that I would want you to have. And that's because of your background, which was very, very cool for me.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. I feel like, to be coachable, you need to also be able to stand up on your 2 feet, even if you're struggling with something, to find the answer to help yourself. Because at the end of the day, a coach can only do so much for you, right? You really have to do a lot of that work. It's a teamwork, of course, but at the end of the day, you're the one that's carrying yourself to that progression. If you want to succeed in what you are wanting to get out of coaching, you really have to do that.
Yeah. And it doesn't come easy. It's not a natural thing, I think, for most people to know how to do that. So I like that you were receptive to telling me what was hard first and then hearing what I had to say and then getting to a place where you were like, think this is what you're going to say, right? Or this is where I'm at with what I think I should do. Like, what do you think? So it was a cool progression. I don't think most people can do that right off the bat is, ask for advice, but think that they can do it on their own. And they usually kind of get there. But I'm wondering if you want to speak at all to your past or what has made you who you are as an adult.
Yeah, no, I'm very open to sharing my past. So, oh goodness, trying to even wrap my head around where I want to start because my mental health history is complicated. I think that's the best way to phrase it. When I started with you, Paige, I had already done a lot of work in the healing process, going to therapy and taking psychotropic medications and trying to keep my eyes open and to just try whatever the providers told me I needed, right? So I've done CBT, and I've done EMDR and the things like that. But I don't think either one of us understood the outcome we were going to get at the end of this just through food.
Totally.
Because that gut to brain connection is extraordinary, right? So the serotonin levels in your brain, there's only 10% of those receptors up there. The rest of your serotonin receptors are located in your gut. So I knew that fact for a long time, but I didn't feel what I'm trying to say until after I started working with you, right? And it wasn't until after I started doing the whole food nutrition and the check-ins with myself and the self-awareness bit that I had to do to feel as good as I do now, right? So in my mid to late 20s, I was diagnosed with CPTSD. It stands for complex PTSD. And it was a late onset diagnosis. So here's the difference between PTSD and CPTSD. Honestly, the symptomology is the exact same. It's just the traumatic events surrounding what somebody endures with CPTSD is long-term sustained, and it happens multiple times. Usually with just regular PTSD, you experience one thing that may or may not then influence symptoms. So, gosh, the majority of my mental health symptoms were pretty okay by the time that I started with you. The thing is I did not feel grounded on my feet. I still felt a little wobbly, and there were still areas in my life where I felt like I wasn't functioning the way that I needed to function, right? And so I want to say it was only within the first month of like really feeding myself the way that I needed to and tracking my food and just being more self-aware as to what I'm putting into my system that, and I said this to you the other day, I could literally see clearer. Like I opened my eyes and the colors outside were more vibrant, right? They were more colorful, and the dysthymia that I've experienced for the majority of my life outside of my depressive episodes really started to wean off. The best way to put it was that it was really magical because I had never felt as good. And I'll tell you what, this spring, it'll be 4 years since the last time I took a psychotropic medication. I've been off of all my antidepressants for the past 4 years. And I haven't needed like a true therapy session. And it'll be, I think, 3 years. So the amount of healing that I've been able to do through food, I probably sound like a broken record. That was the biggest mental health intervention for me.
I love it. It is, you have said things to me that I'll never forget, in that I was a cog in the machine that healed you, and that, I could cry thinking about it because I don't expect to have that impact as just a dietitian, but I do think that it's so cool that food can have that, the way you nourish your body can have that effect.
Yeah, and I said this to you before. I mean, you were pivotal in my healing process. The work that you and I did together was more beneficial for me than the 10 plus years of therapy that I've had to sit through.
Crazy. So crazy.
I know, it is.
It's amazing. Well, I think you're amazing. And Maggie's going to be around. So like she said, she's an open book about what she's gone through. And she's an inspiration to me because of what she's gone through and how strong she is. And so more on that to come, I'm sure. I did want to touch on, because I'm sure some people are tuning in to find out more specifically about what you can offer and what you will be offering at P2. And if there's anything that you'd like to, of course, spend the most time talking about, please let me know.
Sure.
I wanted to know, just to start off, what do you like about being a therapist? What do you like about social work? And, one thing that I mentioned to you is, how does social work, because I kind of think that's a cool piece, even though it's maybe more automatic paperwork vibe. I think that's a really interesting piece to add to therapy. And so I'm wondering what your perspective is adding social work to your background.
Yeah, sure. So I think the thing that I love most about social work is, like I had said before at the very beginning, is my ability to work with any population that I desire, right? And the thing with clinical social work and like clinical psychology, ultimately the outcome is going to be the same. It's treatment with reducing recidivism and reducing mental health symptoms, right? But the thing with social work that is different is that at its core, one of the values that we have, and I hope this doesn't offend any psychologists out there, but at its core is social justice is basically what it is. And we really can provide solutions to social, behavioral, economic, health, et cetera, problems that are faced by a client. It's not just what you typically see when somebody comes in just for therapy, right? So there's macro social work as well as the micro social work, which is, one-on-one therapy sessions. But if you see a social worker lobbying on state capitol, that's something that we do. We can write funding for grants. I mean, there's case management that we can do for our clients. And we also work very deeply on like a multidisciplinary approach. So it's a very holistic approach, I think, for just mental health, well-being, overall well-being.
Yeah, I
That's
love
really yeah. I mean, I feel like we're just grounded on anti-oppression and how to kind of make the world a little bit smoother if we're struggling.
because I feel that at least my experience or exposure to social work is social workers in a clinical setting. And even in that sense, it has always been multidisciplinary where you're triaging, you're part of a group. And I think that is a really cool aspect of what you're bringing to P2, because that's exactly why we're bringing you on. I have wanted a very solid mental health piece added to my coaching and what, my team's coaching for a very long time. And what I feel you can offer that we'll get into, it's just unique and cool and going to be really beneficial in making sure that coaching is comprehensive and not one size fits all.
Yeah, definitely. And you really can't have nutrition and fitness without mental health. It's all so.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a perfect time for me to say my clients know that I often mention therapy, and I wish that I had the tools to almost be that for them as well, because there's a gray area where dietitians do learn counseling in their education, but we hit a wall eventually where I've done everything that I know to do. And again, from a professional standpoint, and I still don't have all the tools. I don't know what homework to give you. I don't know, I don't know how to, I just don't know. I'm not educated in that. And so a lot of my clients hear me ask if they're open to therapy. And that is, again, like you said, it comes up so often because it's so ingrained in what I do as a dietitian. But I think anyone who is trying to improve their health or certainly tracking intakes so specifically for a short amount of time, it is almost unavoidable. And so adding you is going to give us the chance to not just say, have you looked up better health? You're going to help bridge the gap. And so actually, maybe important to say right off the bat that this is not a replacement for therapy. So you are bridging the gap between coaches and better health. So maybe do you want to speak to that a little?
Yeah. So, really with my role at P2, like you said, it's not meant to replace therapy. The consults that I'm offering are more so meant to help you get back on your feet. The sessions are focused mainly on like solution-focused, short-term, goal-oriented type sessions, really meant for those who are struggling with any type of stagnation when it comes to their health and fitness goals, right? So, of course, if there's a coach that is feeling worrisome about one of their clients because they're exhibiting a lot of eating disorder behaviors, or the client themselves are speaking up to, I'm noticing that I feel the urge to restrict or X, Y, and Z, that's a perfect candidate for us to kind of take a look at symptoms, take a look and do a little bit of self-awareness and figure out how we can negate some of those thoughts. Same with if somebody's just struggling with like black and white, all or nothing thinking, and they can't get themselves out of that mindset.
Which is every client we work with.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
I mean, by default, I feel.
Yes, every client. So for sure. I mean, sometimes I think a client might only need like one consult with me because they might just have questions about how do I do the reframing work? How do I do the CBT on my own and get myself to a place to where I can, like you were saying before, coach myself out of a negative thinking pattern. And then I think sometimes it's going to be case by case. I might have to do several consult calls. But what I will say is because these are short-term sessions, if as a clinician, I am seeing that there may need to be some long-term therapy work done, that social work background is going to kick right in. And I'm going to say, you know what, let me figure out some referrals for you that are in your area. Let me help you call your insurance company if you need that. Let me figure out what are the other supports in your area that I can refer you to so that you can get the work that you can do the work that you really deserve to do. So yes, did you? I want to add,
That's what we need. I just love that.
yeah, that's great. I want to add too, Paige, is that I think you might not be giving yourself enough credit when it comes to giving your clients the mental health help that they may need. I was thinking about this earlier today. And I don't know if you know that you do this, but like when we get coaching through you, Paige, I don't know what it's like with any other coach, of course, but you are doing a lot of behavioral modification work, which is very therapeutic. And a lot of the times you're doing the cognitive behavioral work as well with your clients, right? So it's like the helping us to understand and learn antecedent plus behavior equals consequence. Because in my past, I used to be so like impulsive when it came to food. And now it's learning about delayed gratification and why that actually might be healthier than the instant gratification.
Thank you. I love that. And that's again why I just love working with my peers. I feel that I probably learn from you guys as much as, you guys learn from me.
Yeah.
And I will say, the more I coach, more I coach, the better I get. And I think that the CBT aspect of what I do has gotten better tenfold. And it's because I don't feel that anyone is just lacking willpower, right? What is really cool about what I do is that I am not assigned to people who don't care to talk to me. You come to me. And so we're already crossing the bridge of, I know you want this. We don't have to have that conversation. You have already signed up and spent the money. I don't have to ask if you're ready for change. I know that you are. So when things don't go well or things don't go according to plan, or even if a client is beating themselves up about not staying on track and even calling themselves not committed or whatever, the reframe has to happen immediately because I know that you want this. I know you're committed. If things are not working out, it's not because you just lack the willpower. There's a reason. We are human beings. And there's a reason that things are happening the way that they're happening. So I feel that that's how all coaches should operate. And what's cool, I think, about you is that, especially for two reasons, two scenarios. One, someone who is maybe more still in a contemplation phase in terms of maybe needing more help because they need to hear it from someone else, even if they like hearing it from me and it's helpful to hear it from me. You got to hear it from someone else sometimes. And sometimes it's got to be from someone who's actually a professional in that area. And then for the same reason, someone who has worked with me for a very long time, who keeps hearing the same stuff from me. Sometimes you just need something fresh, even if I've worked for a year plus, maybe it's time to get another voice saying the same stuff and being able to offer what I can't. I certainly feel that even though in cases where it's necessary, I refer out and also try to find specific people when I'm able to, but I do that from a very naive place. And I think that you already are going to be more connected in that situation as well.
Mm. And I like what you said about the contemplative or the pre-contemplative stage of things, right? Because when somebody is considering a mental health consult, they may not have put the pieces together to know exactly what's going on. But just the fact that they took that step to ask for that help tells me that they know that in their gut, something just felt off. Something didn't feel good. Yeah. So like you're saying, bridging that gap and just helping that individual process and gain more empowerment through those conversations. That's really my end goal for any client.
I kind of feel like I see you as like the friend. You're like the P2 friend that like someone can chat with on the phone is really how I feel your role is going to integrate itself into what we do, because you are going to be the one sort of like the objective opinion. You're not the coach they have to talk to every week. And although, of course, I want the full truth from all my clients, you're kind of like let me get a breath of fresh air and talk to someone who I can tell them what I need to tell them, with no influence of anything else I've ever told them, and while it's helpful to know what I know from a long-term client, it also probably is very refreshing for some people to think, let me just talk to someone who doesn't even know me, and is a professional. I mean, that's like the benefit of therapy, I think. And so I feel like you're the call a friend. You're like a phone a friend, because I'm, like you said, I'm unsure. And I think that's what this can be too. I think it's important for people to realize this is not, I have disordered eating, I need to do a consult with Maggie, because we're not diagnostic, right? I certainly am not, and you are also not. We should make that clear. You're not going to get a consult with Maggie and leave with a diagnosis ever. That is not what she's for. But again, she can get you to a place where, if that's necessary, she'll point you in the right direction. But I think that on a very like a more chill level of that is, I just want to, like you said, talk to someone and see if what I'm feeling is normal / because I'm sure, honestly, I could tell you it's all normal. What you're experiencing, especially while you're tracking your intakes, is probably normal. But if you feel like it's getting disordered, talk to someone who has the background, who can redirect or, confirm or deny, or even just listen. Like I said, I think it's going to be a cool place for people to go and certainly get help when they really, really need help. But also just, I need a one-off. I think I'm fine. I'm not even close to this disordered eating, but I want to talk through this part of my journey. And you have mentioned goal setting. We haven't really talked about that. We can. Something as simple as, I just, like you said early on, I need redirection, or I forget how you said it, like a refresh in my journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. And I think, with the goal setting thing, it could just be as simple as like, let's take the time together and write down the goals that you want to accomplish. And then let's break it down even more. And let's talk about how we're going to get there, and writing them out using a SMART goal format so that you can succeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly coaches can do that. But again, I think it's because my clients know that I make them do that. But you're going to offer, I think, a breath of fresh air to do it with someone who's not me. And I think that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really excited to be able to help out. And it's a really big full circle moment for me. I want to say too, because, P2, you and P2 On Demand, I mean, you guys got me to where I am now when it comes to a lot of the positives in my life, right? And all the accolades that I received last year from bodybuilding. So to be able to join the team that did so much for me just feels overwhelmingly amazing. Like I have so much gratitude when you asked me to possibly come on board.
It feels full circle for me too. For those of you who don't know, Maggie is also quoted on the back of my book, which is simply about truly like the mindset behind why you should track macros, but how you should view it. And that if you know me, you know that that's very important to me. It's not just about tracking. It's about making sure you know why you're tracking. And Maggie sent me this. I remember vividly, it was in November, and I didn't really start writing the book like pen to paper until after this quote came through. And I used this quote from just a one-off check-in that you gave me. And it was just so perfectly what I want all of my clients to feel about tracking. And it's basically what we said in the beginning, just about how tracking really not only has that mind-gut connection, but also was essentially life-changing for you. And I think it can be that for many people, as long as the mindset is correct. So it's full circle for you. It's for you to come on board, because you've also been, again, just such a great example client, a good friend. You're not just some random person we found. I've worked and known with you for years, which is important. And you were quoted on my book, and we just like really cool connections for me too. And not shameless plug about P2 On Demand. She was not asked to say that. So let's talk about P2 On Demand for a second.
Okay.
No, and lots of like really fun stuff coming out. What I would love to say, because I don't think that Chris and Bryce say it often on the podcast, as there's no need to, is that for those of you who do not know, P2 On Demand we are calling it an online portal. It is going to be a one-stop shop for a lot of things that you'll do with your coaching, with or without a P2 coach. And we'll talk more about what's on the portal in weeks to come. But the portal is what will direct you to have the app on your phone. And so it started out as a training hub with P2 coaches writing these awesome training programs and making them available to anyone who wanted to subscribe to P2 On Demand. And like you, Maggie, I used the P2 On Demand workouts when I didn't want to pay for a training coach, and they're amazing. Like, I truly, and this is my shameless plug. I really love P2 On Demand, and we want to make P2 On Demand something that us as coaches actually would want to use. We're not just randomly like, use this app, subscribe. Like, it's actually, we want something that we would use ourselves. So I can say that I have, and you can say that you have. But it's important to talk about this portal and P2 On Demand for a second, because one of the really awesome things that we're adding to the portal is modules, essentially these courses. And maybe we don't spend too much time talking about it until we do a hard launch, but this can be a soft launch for just letting people know that right now there's training courses that we're refining. We will be adding nutrition courses and mental health courses written by Maggie. So maybe we'll just leave it there. That's like, I don't even know if I should have shared that, but it'll be the soft launch. And I'm really excited for P2 On Demand to become what we see it to be with your help.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be super resourceful. There's going to be just so much information that you can have access to just right on your phone.
For sure, without hiring a P2 coach, which is, we recognize, not a possibility for everybody. Okay, so I want to ask 2 more questions, and you can let me know if you want to touch on anything else. We obviously talked about broadly what someone can expect from you in a consult. More specifically, do you want to speak to, if someone, pays for their consult with you, what can they expect? Kind of like, procedure-wise.
So, I think the first thing that I am going to ask for a client to complete for me is just a quick assessment to help me kind of understand what they've been struggling with, what they want to accomplish in these sessions with me. If there's a mental health history, I do need to be aware of some of these things, right? Because there are things that I'm going to be assessing, like, are there risk factors? Are you currently experiencing a crisis where I might need to actually call you now versus waiting the days or the weeks until we're ready to get you on the calendar, right? So definitely that. And then I had also mentioned there's that case management piece that I want to offer to every client if they need the additional resources at the end of our sessions. So I think it's really just going to be client-based. The sessions here are going to be about 45 minutes to 60 minutes, and they can be done either on the phone, or we can also kind of do them in a video call instead if you prefer face-to-face interaction. I anticipate that for clients that might need my full service, maybe like a 3 to 5 session range is what I'm considering, because I'd mentioned it's going to be very solution focused, right? These are short-term sessions, not meant to replace your traditional therapy services. And then at the end of it, with the wraparound of that case management piece, if you're needing additional assistance before I let you go, that's, as a social worker, I just feel that would be unethical if I just did you and didn't leave you with anything else.
Yeah. And there will be bundles available for her consults for that reason. So amazing. I guess we kind of already talked about this. I was just going to ask what you're most excited about for, joining the P2 team, but I'm going to talk about it.
Yeah, no, I think probably the most exciting thing for me is, so I love to psychoeducate. I love to teach others about mental health. And I feel like, as when you've never had that mental health background before, you don't really know what questions to ask. You don't know who to kind of turn to. You don't really know what the resources are available out there. And sometimes you just need the words to like understand that what you're going through is kind of like what you said earlier, Paige, in an essence, in a way, normal, right? So we had mentioned really briefly on the P2 Demand app, there's going to be, modules that I write. So my first one that I've actually already written is how to successfully set yourself up with SMART goals so that you can crush your goals, right? Right now, I'm working on an eating disorder module, kind of based around disordered eating patterns, body dysmorphia, things like that are highly prevalent in the fitness world that aren't talked about. What I'm also really excited about is just having some of these conversations that might feel scary, because what I want to do with P2 is I want to make sure that we're destigmatizing mental health. Because here's the thing, everybody has mental health because everybody has physical health, right? It's all aligned with one another.
This podcast and us announcing you is coming out in May, which is the perfect launch for you. I'm just so excited that it's happening this month. I was just on a podcast. I can't say who. She hasn't announced that she's doing the podcast yet, but on Tuesday I recorded my history, like my personal experience with mental health. And I agree that it just needs to be destigmatized. I think that's known that for a long time, but I truly think the more people who talk about their experiences, especially if you never know who assumes the opposite about you. So the more you talk about your struggles, you don't know who you're going to inspire. So I agree that it's really cool to have these resources and like mainstream it. Like we got people have stuff to talk about. We all got stuff to work through.
Yeah. For sure. And it's totally okay if you're struggling. It's the thing with depression or anxiety, some of these disorders are just so, what's the word? I totally lost my train of thought. It's so, it makes you feel as if you need to isolate and be alone with what you are struggling with, right? Because they're disordered. But the thing is the more that you talk about it, the more that you realize that it's okay to have these conversations, the more you start to then build connections with others and realizing that you're not alone in the way that you're feeling. Yeah. So
yeah,
let's talk about it, man.
One thing, yeah, when I was on that podcast, you'll hear one thing that helped me overcome what I had gone through was not, I don't want to say labeling it, but giving it context. Learning more about what I was feeling really helped me to be able to know how to address those feelings when they came up again. That's huge. And truly was pivotal for me to figure out almost like what to call what I was going through. And
yeah.
It gave me a direction, and it didn't obviously erase that in my life. It just made it easier to wrap my head around and again give it context in my life. And from there I picked a direction. You if it's more structured. So I think that's what you can offer too, is let's address what you're feeling, and again, not like give it a label, but like let's call it something. Like you said, it's not you feel that it's disordered maybe and that you want to leave it at that. But sometimes, what if it's imposter syndrome that you easily could work through once you realize that it's imposter syndrome? What if it's just, disordered eating tendencies and not a full eating disorder? Because those are different. I think it's really cool to wrap your head around what you're experiencing and what you're feeling, especially with a professional, just to be able to
sometimes too, it's just
go in a different direction. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I think too, it's just like the irrationality piece. And when you start to realize that how irrational maybe that thought process is, and like you were saying, the self-interception is so important as well, to have that self-awareness then, because that's where change happens. When you're able to kind of say, X, Y, and Z is going on, but I don't like it. So I'm going to have to figure out X, Y, and Z. How do I resolve this?
Absolutely. I'm so excited. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we wrap up?
Oh, man, I don't think so. I was really nervous to do this because I've never done a podcast before, but I think we figured out what the tech issue and
Yeah, you know what? I feel like that's like a rite of passage. You have a tech issue, you know,
I know.
of course, fine. Well, this is my first time hosting, so same. Check. Check.
It all worked. I love everything.
Yeah.
I love you too. Thank you for
So
having me.
excited. Yeah. So if you want to work with Maggie, just go to the P2 Instagram because it's going to be all over there. She's on our website. She's in the portal. She's just, you have access to her now the same way you have access to our other P2 coaches. Of course, if you have questions, let both of us know. Is there any other way that you want people to find you, or do you want to do any plugs?
No, I think my Instagram is probably going to be the easiest route. It's Maggie, Maggie lives, Lives, because I'm living now.
You are, girl. Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for this. Like, I could talk forever with you, but more to come, I think, for sure. And thank you again for joining the team. And thanks to everyone for listening in.
Toodles all.